So we return to our regularly scheduled daily practice and Gongchik study. We are going over this very short as well as accessible commentary on the statements of the Gongchik, the 150 statements into 7 chapters. Then there is close to another 40-50 statements in the auxiliary chapter 8, but this commentary doesn't cover those auxiliary statements, the extra statements. So we are now, as you recall, in chapter 5, the chapter on the secret mantra practice. Secret mantra practice being the third of the 3 sets of practices: the individual liberation practice, the bodhisattva practice, and then the secret mantra practice. So in Kyobpa Rinpoche's way of teaching this, he says that although, yes, you could just practice individual liberation vows, and also with an individual liberation motivation, meaning you practice the individual liberation practices and primarily just focused on freeing yourself from confusion and suffering. And you could do that, but that's not the way to go. Likewise, and that's not the way to go because the full result of what you could otherwise achieve is sacrificed. And you will achieve a limited result. Profound result for sure. Way more profound, way more free than where you and I are right now. Don't underestimate, don't look down on even that limited achievement. It's only limited in relation to what a Buddha achieves. In relation to us, the individual liberation, limited liberation, we cannot even imagine how free that is. Sometimes we get carried away, when we read or we hear about like seeming criticisms of like, the limited focus of the individual liberation vow practices. Limited focus as in limited on just the personal, the individual. Then we say, that's a limited goal, And then we mistakenly think, that's just, for beginners. No. Just that freedom, that so-called limited freedom, if we have a taste of it, we probably say, yes, I'm there. So to say, and then completely no time to think of other people anymore, Not that you are egocentric, but what a relief, you already feel like, wow, But Kyobpa Rinpoche says, no, don't sacrifice the big result that otherwise you could achieve, which is actualizing the complete and perfect Buddha state. So he says, we should also fold in the bodhisattva practices. So when it comes to the bodhisattva practices, in relation to the individual liberation, bodhisattva practices emphasize the full and complete result of Buddhahood. That even though it will take unimaginably longer time to achieve the goal set forth in the bodhisattva practices compared to the goal set forth in the individual liberation practices. we should aim for this. We should aim for this complete and perfect Buddhahood. And so then we practice the 6 paramitas and the 10,000, practices of avoiding negativity, cultivating virtue, and benefiting beings. These are said to be the 3 disciplines of the Bodhisattva practices. Doing away with non-virtuous actions, cultivating a great store of virtues, and then benefiting beings. Then on that basis, Kyobpa Rinpoche says, and now when we are able to fold secret mantra into this, then the power of secret mantra can help us achieve this otherwise this goal that is very hard and takes very long to achieve, if we now have the interdependences taught in secret mantra and know how to use those interdependences, then we can quickly achieve the otherwise very difficult and takes a long time to achieve goal set forth in the Bodhisattva vehicle. So in this way, all 3 vehicles are held as the one complete method to achieve Buddhahood. This general position, that all 3 vehicles should be practiced together to achieve the result of complete and perfect awakening, is a position that I would say all Tibetan Buddhist traditions accept. No question. They all accept that. Yeah? It's not just a Drikung thing. It's not just a Jigten Sumgon thing. All traditions of Tibetan Buddhism accept this basic position. Where the different lineages may differ is, given this basic position, is there one particular set of practice that they emphasize over the other? There are differences. And also, how do they interpret? If there is an action that you are going to take, and then seemingly from the perspective of secret mantra, it seems okay, whereas from the perspective of individual liberation, it doesn't seem okay, how do you deal with that? Then each lineage will have kind of different, will give you kind of different viewpoints to consider and course of action to take. So then Kyobpa has his way of handling these differences. So hopefully, through studying these Vajra statements, we know both the general and the specifics of this approach, this unique emphasis. So in this unique emphasis of Kyobpa Rinpoche, emptiness and dependent arising, or interdependent arising, and emptiness, that is always at the center, at the heart of his system. That emptiness, because of that emptiness, and that emptiness is not some kind of mere absence, but that emptiness has implications, and the implication is it allows appearances to manifest. When appearances manifest, they manifest according to the principle of interdependence, of dependent arising. Or, to state it using different vocabulary, but making the same point, they arise through the principle of karmic causality. Karmic causality. And the way that karmic causality works, that we call it the fundamental nature. In other traditions, they might, I would say, generally speaking, in other traditions, they might be a little bit reluctant to call the principle of karmic causality fundamental nature. So these are traditions who want to, who feel that it is important to say that is relative truth, and relative truth is relative. Ultimate truth is ultimate. Yeah. So they would not use, generally speaking, they would not use this phrase fundamental nature they would not give this very, lofty title, fundamental nature, to karmic causality. Fundamental nature in Tibetan Shi. They are not going to give this very fancy title, fundamental nature. They will give this title, fundamental nature, to emptiness. Yes, no question. They'll say, oh yes. And then for those who, very much emphasize Buddha nature, Buddha nature, Buddha nature, they will say, oh, that is the real fundamental nature. But not so common to see the principle of karmic causality, the principle of the interdependent arising, the principle of dependent arising, interdependence. Not so common to see people giving that the title fundamental nature. But I would say in Kyobpa's system, that is fundamental nature. And more specifically, that is how the fundamental nature of things play out. That is how the fundamental nature of things manifest, exist, and goes out of existence. How they go out of existence? According to this principle. How do they come into existence? According to this principle. How they stick around, how they behave? According to this principle. Make sense? Yeah, you see what is being emphasized here? It's different, This is the particular flavor of this set of teachings. If it doesn't make sense now, it's okay. Give yourself time, but you have to look for, this is what I've said, you have to look for, what is unique about this? I think sometimes when we study Buddha Dharma, and Buddha Dharma as presented by so many traditions, and even within one tradition, by... Hey, Alexa, stop. Alexa is spying on me. Oh, called her name again. That thing is spying on me. But not a very good spy, obviously, because she thinks I'm talking to her when I'm not. Good spies, you don't know they are even there, Yeah, sometimes when we study the Buddha Dharma, and now these days, right? I mean, we have access to basically whatever form of Buddha Dharma we want, from this culture, that culture, this teacher, that teacher, and even within one tradition, It's good, I think, for many of us, we like to see how they all agree. We like that, Not only that, we even extend it to, shamanism and, Taoism and Hindu, and it all feels good, Om Shanti, 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 I mean, people love that, It's good, at least, maybe we will stop killing each other if we, can see, oh, we are all same. But it's also really important, I think. If you really want to understand something, you cannot just leave it in there. You cannot be afraid to look at differences. You cannot be afraid to look at differences. Because by looking at differences, it highlights to you what is so unique and what is so special about each. To untrained eyes, like this land that we, the Drikung Dharmakirti Foundation has been gifted. This land, to me, untrained eyes, I go there, I look at, the forest. I'm like, oh, trees. Trees. I call them trees. Yeah. Even bushes, in my mind, trees. But we have a community Dharma person. She's a botanist. Oh, when you walk with her, oh, the things that she can point out, it's amazing, because she can see, oh, the unique features, and she said, if look at the way these things are growing on the branches of these trees. She says that tells us, the air here is good. So that kind of feature can turn up on the trees here. Oh, over there, that tree, and can tell us so much about what to me is trees. Yeah, it's good to overcome the partiality of my trees are better than your tree. So yes, that attitude we always we have to cultivate, like even the trees that are different and all that, we consider them as a whole. Consider the bigger ecosystem, so to say, but do not be afraid to be able to tell, oh, this is an oak, this is a chestnut, this is a cedar, and the characteristics. And so this I think, it's important if you want to go deeper into something. When you listen, you have to say, how is this teacher saying this that is different? Not to find fault, but to help us kind of appreciate, and to help us sort out our own confusions, our lack of clarity, I'm also not saying that you always have to agree with, what this or that person is saying, this or that teacher is saying. No, it doesn't mean you always have to agree. But you disagree with clarity and also with humility. Because why? With humility, meaning you can say, I now disagree. But who knows? Maybe later I see more, understand more, and I might agree. Right? That changes. That changes too. So anyway, some overall, as we restart the series, I thought I'll say a few words about this. Yeah. So we started, I believe, looking at statement 8 of chapter 5, where statement 8, of chapter 5 is saying, one should take the characteristics of deities that are taught in the sutras and tantras as most important. So here, in Khenpo Kunpal's commentary here, he says, due to, right, due to some interdependencies, that means due to, particular causes and conditions, actually, he doesn't use this language. But let's look at, his commentary again. Concerning the painting of, erecting, or meditating on deities and so forth, of either sutra or tantra, until one has attained omniscient wisdom, meaning until one is a Buddha, one still has obscuration in one's mind stream, and therefore one should not take perceived appearances that turn up in meditative experiences, dreams, and so forth as the main point, as important. This includes, great lamas or whatever saying, oh, in a vision, in a dream, I had this, I saw the deity and the deity appears in this way, or in my meditation, I perceive directly, oh, the deity is like this, like that. So here it's saying, Kyobpa is saying, until one is a Buddha, even if you have a very profound experience of seeing the deity in this way or that way, mainly you should rely on what is clearly described in the sutras and tantras, and not manufacture. Or here is not even manufacturing, right? Here he is putting aside, we don't even have to consider those who are like deliberately coming up with new deities. Like put that aside, He's saying that even if you feel that you or your teacher or the head of your lineage has a profound experience, and say, well, actually Tara's hand, should be like this. Or now we have a new form of Tara, Here, Kyobpa is not immediately saying that is fake. No. He says primary focus should be. What should be emphasized, what should be centered is the idams. Here is specific to idams, especially, right? If these are like representations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that you are not using to cultivate creation stage, meaning, in other words, meaning you're not relating to them as idams. If you're not relating to them as idams, it's not as important. But if you're relating to them as idam, and what does that mean? That means you are engaging in the creation stage practices of that particular deity, then he says, then you should rely on those forms and those characteristics that are clearly taught in the sutras and tantras. So that was a question, I think Kelvin asked, well, what about the dharmas? Dharmas are these like concealed treasure teachings, primarily by Guru Rinpoche, and also sometimes Yeshe Sogyo, and then revealed in the future. Well, according to this Vajra statement, it's saying, yes, those dharmas and all that, may be helpful, but don't forget this basic principle. Whatever is taught in the idams that are clearly taught in the sutras and tantras, That should remain our primary focus. To me, this is also saying, like it's so easy to get all excited by someone having some kind of special experience and then sharing with us, and we go, oh yes, yes, yes. It's normal to be excited because we are inspired by someone, right? Seemingly having those results that we have only read about in books. Oh, this person have a direct face-to-face encounter with the deity. Yeah, we say, I only read about this happening in the 15th century. Then suddenly you hear, oh, actually, right, it's also happening for someone, and they're coming to town now. I got like, oh yes, this person is going to give, an empowerment of a vision that he had. We get very excited. We don't even know who this person is, we get very excited. And I think the reason is because I get it, myself too, right? We want to feel like, whatever we read is not just like ancient history, but it's still happening today. That's understandable. That's understandable. We like something fresh. But please, don't go too far in that direction. Don't go too far in that direction. Once in a while, getting some special dessert, that's good. But if your dessert becomes mainly all you eat, that's probably going to bring some problems. Your staple food is your main sustenance. Yeah, might seem boring, but that's mainly what we eat, Yes. So beyond the issue of is this deity form correct, not correct, all of that, yeah. I think we can also go in the wrong direction when we become like, we say, oh, this painting, this Tanka painter, Tara's finger is slightly off, wrong. Have to make it this way, that way. That's another kind of like problem that now arises, you become so tight, Yeah, in any case, right, we have to also understand, like it is not, that Manjushri, for example, right, always like depicted, holding a sword above, his head, wielding a sword, and then, the hand here holding a lotus stalk with a text on top like that, I mean, it's not like Manjushri is like stuck like that all the time. Even though in creation stage practice, we do visualize as if we are always like that, if you're practicing Manjushri. Or if you're Tara, always like that. It's not like Tara remains frozen, right? The reality of Tara is not that she remains frozen like this, That's misunderstanding, what creation stage practice is. So at the same time, Kyobpa is not saying that the only way is get stuck like that. Get stuck like that. The larger point he's making is don't get overly excited by individual lamas, experiences, or even your own experiences. Rely on what we reliably know to originate from the sutras and tantras, especially when it comes to the creation stage practice. So relating to a deity as idam. 5.9. Those with superior faculties need extensive rituals. So that's to read. The perfect auspicious conditions for performing extensive rituals and mandalas, such as sand mandalas, and the main and secondary rituals, have great benefits, such as causing unfathomable qualities and activities to arise. Therefore, those with superior faculties, who have deeply experienced the profound meaning of the indivisibility of emptiness and dependent origination, they especially need extensive rituals. This is because the result of that is to quickly attain the two perfect, unfathomable accomplishments, which is the supreme and the mundane siddhis or accomplishments. So this statement is really interesting, because generally what we think is, the more advanced you are, then the less need you have for elaborate practices, elaborate rituals. And yes, there is a logic to that, right? The more advanced you are, the less dependent you are on, all the more external types of practices. But at the same time, Kyobpa Rinpoche also made this statement. Right? He also made this statement, which says, right? Those with superior faculties need extensive rituals. So here the logic is this. Why did the Buddha give such detailed practices? For example, right, the Kalachakra mandala, that's the most extensive of all mandalas. The Kalachakra Tantra, the mandala described in the Kalachakra Tantra, is said to have over 700 deities. And Kalachakra himself, the male deity himself, has many faces, many hands, and then Vishwamata, the female deity in the Kalachakra system, also have many aspects, and they are in union, and out of them, 720 something deities emanate. So did the Buddha teach Kalachakra for new people? No. Buddha taught Kalachakra for those who have the ability and the capacity to further develop their capacity. So that all the details in there are related to refining a particular Buddha quality. So in that sense, you could say too, the more experience you have, and the more experience you are in the practice, the more you can benefit from complex systems. Likewise, this principle can be applied to. When you first learn the Dharma, you learn the general overall picture. And when you become more, when you can understand more, when you are familiar with the overall picture, it is good to get to the finer details. So that all the fine details no longer become burdensome. Right now, when we don't have the ability, when we don't have that capacity, it can become really burdensome, overwhelming, right? All the details. So overwhelming. But as you become more and more familiar with this, the more the details, the more, the more you can benefit from it. But also true, I would say, at some point, then all the details, it's not like they're no longer important, but they're so much part and parcel of your understanding already. And at that point, you don't see them as details anymore. They also come together as one. Yeah. So then, here it says, those with superior faculties, they have the ability to take advantage of the complexity. Here, Khenpo Kunpal's commentary is really points out something that is important. He defines what does it mean, those with superior faculties. It means those who have deeply experienced the profound meaning of the indivisibility of emptiness and dependent origination. Meaning that fundamental point that we were talking about. The fundamental nature is not just emptiness. The fundamental nature is also dependent arising. It's also karmic causality. And those who have understood to at least some degree, even intellectually, that emptiness and karmic causality are two sides of the same coin. That there is this fundamental nature to everything. And when you have a little bit understanding of this, then all the complex details no longer become obstacles, or don't need to become obstacles. So if right now the details are intimidating, overwhelming, and you feel, I don't want to know. In some ways, it's showing that we are fixated on them being like this solid objects, and you say, I don't have place to put all these solid objects. My mental space is full already. I don't want more. I don't want more. That means indivisibility of emptiness and dependent arising. You still need to work on that. When you have more understanding of indivisibility of appearances and emptiness, form and emptiness, then you can keep absorbing more and more. It will not cause a traffic jam up here or in here. Likewise, right now, like again, if you're addicted to getting more information, I'm going to attend this, I'm going to attend that, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take that, and then especially doing all of that and refusing to accept the need for a guide, at least one, if not more, right? And going here to get from this teacher what I want, and this what I want. That is like going to several doctors in the same town, telling them what you want them to know and hiding other things to get whatever prescription you want to get. That is the definition of drug abuse. And the problems that come from that, Yes, we primarily have to take responsibility for our process. In the end, we are the ones who are confused, and we are the ones who have to wake up. We are the ones who cause the confusion for ourselves, and we are the ones who have to wake up. But if we go about, simply collecting information, then, and worse, collecting information to enhance your afflictive emotions, even Dharma information, then it's not going to help, right? In Rinzhen Chanchup's summary, or introduction, actually, where he links the extra statements to the main statements, on page 36, those of you who have the book. The ninth statement, 5.9, those with superior faculties need extensive rituals, he says, should also read together with 3 other statements. 832 says, extensive rituals are necessary without differentiating the provisional and the definitive. So what that statement is saying is, don't get carried away by, oh, this is a provisional practice and this is a definitive practice. In other contexts, we do say, rely on the definitive, right? And not on the provisional. The 4 reliances, the basic kind of guideline on how to learn Dharma, how to take Dharma into our lives, how to let Dharma change our lives, right? Called the 4 reliances. The first one is rely on the teachings, not on the person. Then, now that we have some of the teachings, rely on the meaning. Don't get stuck on the words. Then, as for meaning, rely on definitive meaning. Don't get stuck on the provisional. Then, when finally come to the true meaning, use wisdom, not conceptual thoughts. These are the 4. But when I teach about the 4 reliances, I said, but don't take it too literally when it says rely on teachings, not on the person. It's not saying you don't rely whatsoever on the person. Without another person teaching you the Dharma, how would you even know the Dharma? So it's not saying don't rely. It's saying you start here, but you have to move to here. You start with people teaching you, but you have to move towards the Dharma as what you can really rely on, the teachings. So don't just, I like this teacher so much, I really like hanging out with. It's okay if you understand, well, I'm hanging out, but don't mistake the hanging out as learning Dharma. It may or may not be. Of course, there's so many ways to learn from teachers, and not just when the teacher is sitting on the teacher seat and teaching. There are many ways, of course. But don't get confused, by simply, oh, I'm hanging out with, In fact, there are many examples of like great masters that are surrounded by not so great disciples. Yeah. Like nothing has changed for them, Some of the most kind of disturbing behavior, you're like, oh gosh, what's going on here, These are, they say, they give one example, they say, no matter how long, or fish, they say, live in the ocean all their lives, but they are not salty. So don't be like that, live in a salty ocean, no salt whatsoever comes in, So rely on teachings, not dharma. So in the case of the four reliances, the emphasis there is, know what is provisional and know what is definitive. But here, this advice here, without, here it says, the extensive rituals are necessary without differentiating between the provisional and definitive. What it's saying there is, don't get carried away by. If you're constantly asking, what is definitive? What is definitive, right? Then you tend to throw out, all the provisional. But understand that, why did the Buddha teach the provisional, so to say? Because that is how we are going to able to digest the definitive. Right? So, Shantideva says in Bodhicharyavatara, without recourse, without relying on the relative, the ultimate will never be understood. You will never reach the ultimate without relying on the relative. So the provisional is there for a purpose. If you start off your training, right, so to say, by asking, immediately you arrive, think of it as like more like not even spiritual training. Think of it, you're trying to learn something new, right? A craft, a set of skills, right? And you arrive and you say, okay, I don't have a lot of time, so just tell me. What is the most important thing? I just want to do that. You will never learn. Any skill that you guys have picked up, that kind of skill, not reliable, even if superficially you think, So for a good cook, you start from just chopping. Lots of chopping. Lots of cutting things. For a painter, like house painting, if you're learning that skill, it starts from maybe sanding. So those are all the provisional. But if you start off your training by already saying, this not necessary, 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 I'm going to just go for that. Your skill set is very fragile. Exactly the same with Dharma. And especially these days, people are so smart, So people that come to Dharma Center, they think, I know all these things already, so just tell me how to meditate. Now tell me Mahamudra. Now tell me Dzogchen, I'm there. It says, those with superior faculties only need Dzogchen. So I'm here. Who doesn't like to think they have superior faculties? Every time you read texts like that, they'll say, and those with superior faculties, maybe we don't say it out loud, but quietly we're like, yeah, me. So here, that statement. Then, next statement, if one is tamed by it, statement 33, Jigten Sumgon also accepts concise rituals. You see, Jigten Sumgon is not so insistent that always extensive. He says, there are also cases where beings can be changed and transformed through concise rituals. So then, that is also appropriate. And finally, another statement is, the marvelous protective sphere is bodhicitta. This is a very famous quote. sometimes translated in a longer way, which is like unexcelled bodhicitta is the supreme wheel of protection. I've seen that often, but a more compact translation of this line, which in Tibetan is Sungwe Korlo Mezung Changju Sem. Sungwe Korlo Mezung Changju Sem, which is, you could say, there is no protection. There is no protection device. There's no alarm system. There's no security system that is as amazing as bodhicitta. So here is talking about there are, in creation stage practice, there are some in the very detailed, like detailed Kalachakra, detailed Vajra, detailed Vajra Varahi, Chakasamvara. There are very detailed rituals of securing the practice environment through offering, making offerings to remove obstacles, then visualizing like a Vajra tent with fires, forming the first level of protection, then like Vajras, then arrow, spear, like basically think of it as, like you're in this military zone, completely protected. So those are the extensive rituals. Yeah, those are the extensive rituals, part and parcel of these longer sadhanas. But Kyobpa Rinpoche also made this statement that the superior protection device is bodhicitta. So that's like the definitive, right? The provisional is all the rituals of, it's not just ritual, it's body, speech, and mind all coordinated. You have to mentally visualize, like this Dharma becomes a great abundance that is given to all the obstructors. You call the obstructors to come, ring the bell, burn this incense, do this gesture, all of that. Those are, you could say, the definitive, I mean the provisionals. But there's a reason why the Buddha taught the provisional. If the definitive bodhicitta is all we need, why did the Buddha bother with all the other things? Because where you and I are, simply to think bodhicitta may not be enough. So we need the provisional methods. So this is the relationship between concise practices and extensive practice. When we get too jammed up in the details, then we need to practice in a more concise way, a more essential way. And after practicing a while in a more essential way, right? But also we are starting to feel, I think I'm just being lazy now. And go back to focusing on all the provisional. I would even say, like in your daily commitment of practicing, you will have periods of time where you're very good at doing practices daily. Right on time, same practice, with or without a group, you do it. Then at a certain point, you might feel, I'm just going through the motions. Then I would say, I know other teachers will say, no, you cannot do this. But my own experience is step away. But not step away with the wrong reason, but step away with the reason of I need to experience this training in a different way. Step away, but your mind is still on it, but you're just saying, okay, I'm going to stop this now because it has become what we call autopilot. You're not even really driving, you're just physically there. Step away. When you step away long enough, then it will come back again. Then you come back again. To me, that's not giving up on your practice. That's finding ways to make practice meaningful, impactful. Yeah. So we will stop here today. 5:10. The next statement is a very interesting statement. Very. So we will do that tomorrow. So now let's do the dedication, the Jigten Sumgon dedication on our opening text. Opening and dedication text. Sublime, precious, venerable, and glorious root and lineage gurus, assembly of Idam deities, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas dwelling in the 10 directions, and all assemblies of Viras, Viranis, Yoginis, and Dakinis, please heed me. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and the inherent root of virtue not result in the 8 worldly dharmas, the 4 causes of samsara, and the resultant states of hearers and solitary realizers, and may all mother sentient beings limitless as the sky, particularly those enemies who hate us, obstruct us, who harm, those who create obstacles, Maras who mislead, and their Mara retinues, have happiness, be separated from suffering, and quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, and precious Bodhi. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may we benefit sentient beings with body, speech, and mind. May the afflictive thoughts of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise in mind stream. May thoughts of name, fame, gain, respect, and so forth in this life not arise for even a moment. With my mind stream moistened by love, compassion, and bodhicitta, may I come under the care of virtuous spiritual friends. And having become as limitless as space, may I achieve the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. By the virtues collected in the 3 times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. Ta-ta, everyone.